The room was dark, the kind of darkness that pressed against your skin and seeped into your thoughts. Helena Marino's eyes fluttered open, and the first thing she noticed was the cold metal beneath her hands. Her memories were fractured, like shards of glass she could barely hold. 14 months of stasis, or what had felt like eternity, had stolen something from her, though she couldn't yet name it. And then he was there. Kane Farron. The air shifted the moment she sensed him. He didn't need to move for his presence to command attention. The darkness around him seemed to bend, coil, as if the room itself bowed to his will. A faint shadow of a necromancer, whispered rumors called him, but Helena had seen only glimpses of men and women who had vanished at his command. She shivered, and yet, something in his gaze held her still. Not fear, not entirely. Curiosity, maybe. You're awake, his voice rumbled, deep, deliberate, and it made her pulse quicken despite herself. Helena tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her tongue thick with disuse. Memories flickered. Faces, places, a war, magic. Everything fractured, shifting, rewriting itself in her mind. She realized with a pang that she could not trust even herself. Not yet. Kane stepped closer, his tailored black suit immaculate, dark hair slicked back, sharp features slicing through the dim light. Every motion was controlled, deliberate, and every inch of him radiated danger. Yet beneath that danger was something magnetic, intoxicating, almost cruel in its allure. You remember nothing, he said, almost a statement, not a question. And that's exactly how I want it. Helena's hands trembled as she tried to rise. His eyes followed her, unblinking, assessing, testing boundaries she didn't know she had. The room smelled faintly of leather, smoke, and something else. Something darker, something that set her nerves alight. Why am I here? She managed, her voice a whisper, her defiance fragile but burning. Kane tilted his head, a ghost of a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. You're not here by accident. Everything about you is valuable, dangerous, and mine to control. A shiver ran down her spine, part fear, part thrill. Helena's magic, though fragmented, flickered beneath her skin, a warning, a reminder of the power she still held. He had to know. And yet, despite the tension, the pull between them was undeniable. Kane Farron stepped back, letting the silence stretch. Rest. Learn who you are again. But know this, every choice you make, every thought you trust, I will be watching, and I am not forgiving. Helena lay back, chest rising and falling. The room was silent except for the faint hum of electricity in the air, a storm waiting beyond the walls. She realized something she wasn't ready to admit. She didn't want to run. Not yet. The shadows in the room were thick, but in them, she felt the first spark of desire, of danger, of connection. A warning and a promise all at once. Kane Farron had entered her life like a storm, and she would have to navigate his world carefully, or be consumed by it. The dawn crept through the high, barred windows, casting pale stripes across the cold stone floor. Helena's body ached from the stiffness of her stasis, but it was the tension in the air that made her muscles quiver. Kane Farron's presence was everywhere, like the room itself had learned to breathe with him. He stood by the window, arms crossed, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. When he turned, the weight of his gaze pressed down on her, suffocating yet electrifying. There was no softness in it, only command, only power. And beneath that, a glimmer of something that made her stomach twist in ways she didn't understand. Stand, Kane said, voice low, deliberate. The single word held no question. Helena's legs moved on their own, trembling under the intensity of his stare. Every nerve in her body screamed both warning and invitation. You're not accustomed to this world anymore, he continued, pacing slowly around her. And yet you will learn. You will obey. And if you survive, you will begin to remember who you truly are. Helena's jaw tightened. I don't belong here, she whispered, though the words sounded fragile against the darkness surrounding them. Kane's smirk was faint, cruel. Belonging isn't the point. Control is. He stepped closer, the scent of him. Smoke, leather, and something darker, almost predatory, curling around her senses. Helena's pulse surged. She hated him. She hated herself for noticing how alive his nearness made her feel. You'll start with something simple, he said. A test? He held up a small black box. Inside, she glimpsed a shimmering, almost liquid light. Her magic, restrained, bending to his command. Prove that your gift is yours alone, or you'll find out what happens when you fail me. Her fingers itched to reach for it, but hesitation held her back. Every instinct screamed caution, and yet, the pull was undeniable. To touch it was to touch him, in a way, to step closer to the danger that made her heart pound. Kane's eyes narrowed, studying her with a patience that was anything but kind. Do you feel that, Helena? He asked softly. That pull? That's not fear. That's desire. And you'd be a fool to ignore it. Helena swallowed hard. He was right. She had felt it from the moment he entered the room. a magnetic, impossible attraction that both terrified and intrigued her, but she wouldn't let it control her. Not yet. And yet, as her fingers hovered over the black box, she realized that every move she made, every breath she took, Kane Farron had already mapped it. He didn't just command her body. He claimed her attention, her mind, her senses. The test was more than magic. It was the first step in a dangerous game, a dance of power, desire, and submission that neither of them could ignore. And as Helena's fingers brushed the surface of the shimmering light, she understood something terrifying and thrilling all at once. This world of shadows, of Mafia rules and mystical force, would change her forever. Kane Farron had made his first command, and she, in ways she couldn't yet admit, was ready to obey. The night came faster than Helena expected, swallowing the mansion in a velvet darkness pierced only by faint candlelight. She sat on the edge of the cold stone bed, fingers tracing the edges of the black box Kane had given her. Its magic pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat, echoing the one that had begun to race within her. Memories, or what remained of them, flashed in fragments, a battlefield, her hands glowing with healing light, screams, fire, and shadows that moved like predators. Every flicker tugged at her mind, threatening to shatter the fragile cage of the present she clung to. Kane entered silently, as if the walls themselves whispered his arrival. Helena felt him before she saw him, the familiar weight of his presence pressing against her like a dark tide. "You're thinking about the past," he observed, his voice low, carrying the same calm menace that had haunted her dreams. "Memories are dangerous. They can destroy you, or remind you who you are." Helena met his gaze, defiance flaring despite the fear curling in her chest. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. "Not fully." Kane took a step closer, and the candlelight glinted off the sharp angles of his face. "You will," he said almost softly, though the steel in his tone warned her otherwise. "And I'll see every part of you, every secret, every desire. Nothing escapes me, Helena." A shiver ran down her spine, equal parts fear and something darker. There was no escaping him, no running from the pull that threaded through every interaction, every glance. Her magic tingled beneath her skin, responding to him as though it recognized its master, or perhaps its adversary. "You're still strong," Kane murmured, circling her like a shadow that could not be escaped. "Stronger than most. But strength isn't enough here. You must learn to bend. Or break." Helena swallowed hard. "And if I refuse?" she asked, the words barely audible, yet carrying a spark of challenge. Kane paused, eyes narrowing, then a faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched his lips. "Refusal is intriguing," he said, letting the word hang between them. "But I don't tolerate insolence. Not from anyone, and certainly not from someone like you." He extended a hand, not a command, but an invitation. Helena hesitated, the flickers of her memories whispering warnings. She knew the dangers, yet the pull was irresistible. Something inside her recognized him, not the monster the world whispered about, but a force that had claimed her attention, demanded her focus, and ignited a fire she hadn't felt in months. Tentatively, she placed her hand in his. The contact was electric, searing through every nerve, every doubt. Kane's eyes softened just slightly, a crack in the darkness, but the power he exuded remained absolute. "You're learning," he said quietly, "and soon you'll remember more than you think. But beware, every memory recovered brings danger. And desire," Helena nodded, heart hammering, mind spinning. Desire, the word felt like a warning and a promise. Kane Farron was more than a captor. He was the storm she couldn't predict, the fire she couldn't resist, and the shadows she couldn't escape. The night deepened around them, and with it, the fragile trust began to form. Threads of attraction and tension that neither could deny. In the darkness, amidst flickers of memory and danger, Helena realized something she couldn't yet name. Kane Farron was no longer just her captor. He was her obsession. The mansion was alive with quiet tension, each shadow holding a secret, each corner a threat. Helena moved cautiously through the dimly lit hallways, the black box clutched tightly in her hands. Kane's words from the previous night echoed in her mind. Every memory recovered brings danger and desire. She didn't fully understand what he meant yet, but she felt it, the pull of curiosity, the allure of knowledge forbidden, the danger she longed to touch. Kane appeared from the shadows before she could reach the study, as if he had been waiting for her. He leaned casually against the doorway, arms crossed, the faintest smirk playing at his lips. "Curiosity can kill," he murmured, his voice low and deliberate, sending shivers down her spine. "Or it can make you indispensable." Helena squared her shoulders, trying to mask the flutter in her chest. "I'm not afraid of knowledge," she replied, though her fingers tightened around the box. She was afraid of him, of the way he made her feel, drawn in, cautious, and alive all at once. Kane's eyes darkened and he stepped closer, the scent of leather and smoke clinging to him like a second skin. "Knowledge is power," he said softly, "but here power has a price, and the price is often desire." A flicker of movement in the shadows caught Helena's attention. One of Kane's men, a tall, silent figure with a cold stare, slipped past, delivering a message. Kane read it in silence, then tore it in half, letting the pieces fall to the floor. "Enemies are moving," he said, voice sharp now, commanding. "And you, Helena, are too valuable to leave unprepared." Helena felt her pulse quicken. The danger wasn't abstract anymore. It was close, tangible, pressing against her like the weight of Kane's presence. And still, against every instinct screaming to flee, she felt the magnetic pull toward him. "You always watch me," she whispered, almost a challenge. Kane tilted his head, a dark smile curving his lips. "I do more than watch. I see, I anticipate. And sometimes, I guide." His gaze bore into hers, raw and unrelenting, and Helena realized she was no longer standing on neutral ground. Every movement she made, every thought she dared to entertain, he could read. She was exposed, and strangely exhilarated by it. He circled her slowly, like a predator and a dance partner all at once. "Your magic is awakening," he said. "Fragments of the past are returning. But beware. Curiosity can lead to mistakes, and mistakes have consequences." Helena's fingers tingled as the black box pulsed softly against her palm. She knew he was right. The lure of power, of memories, of understanding her fractured past was irresistible. And the pull toward him, Kane Farron, the man who terrified and obsessed her, was equally dangerous. A flicker of a smile crossed her lips, hesitant but defiant. "Then I'll learn. I'll face the danger. And I'll survive," she said, feeling the tension crackle between them. Kane stopped, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, the subtle power radiating from every controlled motion. "Good," he whispered, voice a mixture of command and promise, "because danger is only just beginning. And so is desire." The night deepened around them, shadows stretching long and dark. Helena realized that every step she took in this world of Mafia rules, magic, and forbidden attraction would pull her closer to him, or destroy her entirely. The evening air was heavy with the scent of smoke and wet stone as Helena wandered through the mansion's hidden corridors. Every step echoed softly, a reminder that she was never truly alone. Kane Farron's presence lingered like a shadow at her shoulder, even when he wasn't there, a constant weight pressing against her senses. She reached the grand library, a vast room lined with books that seemed to whisper secrets in the flickering candlelight. Her fingers brushed the spines of forgotten tomes, searching for answers, for pieces of herself that might have survived the stasis. The black box pulsed faintly in her hand, almost impatiently, as if it, too, felt the rising tension in the room, and then he was there. Kane Farron leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, the faint curve of his smirk visible even in the dim light. "You shouldn't wander alone," he said, his voice low and teasing, yet threaded with authority, especially not when curiosity brings fire to your fingertips. Helena's pulse quickened. Fire, desire, danger, words he didn't even need to say aloud, yet they hung between them, tangible and scorching. She clenched the black box, struggling to contain the flicker of magic within her. "I can handle it," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Her heart, however, betrayed her. It raced against her ribcage, hammering in time with the pull she felt toward him, toward danger, toward the impossible attraction that had become her constant companion. Kane stepped closer, closing the space between them. His presence was intoxicating, a storm wrapped in dark silk. "Can you?" he asked, and his gaze locked with hers, cutting through the layers of fear and restraint. "Because I've seen what happens to those who overestimate themselves in my world." Helena swallowed hard. She could feel the heat emanating from him, the subtle power that demanded both obedience and attention. Her magic stirred, responding to the intensity of the moment, a warning and an invitation all at once. Kane's hand brushed against hers, not touching the box, but close enough that sparks seemed to leap between their skin. The contact was electric, searing, and Helena gasped despite herself. Every nerve in her body hummed with tension, a dangerous mixture of fear, fascination, and desire. "You're stronger than you realize," he murmured, his voice soft yet commanding. "But strength alone won't protect you from me. Or from what's coming." Helena's fingers twitched, her hand brushing his lightly, almost accidentally. It was enough to feel the current that passed between them, enough to ignite a fire that neither magic nor caution could extinguish. She knew then that the game Kane had begun wasn't just about control. It was about drawing her in, testing her, tempting her in ways that were both perilous and irresistible. The black box pulsed once more, a heartbeat in her palm, and Helena realized something undeniable. In Kane Farron's presence, desire was as dangerous as the Mafia world that surrounded them, and she was already caught in both. He stepped back, just enough to release her, but not enough to diminish the heat between them. "Remember this," he said softly, almost a promise. "Every touch, every glance, every choice, it will burn, and only you can decide if you survive it or surrender to it." Helena's chest rose and fell rapidly, her mind a whirlwind of fear, power, and the first true stirrings of desire. Fire had been touched, and now there was no going back. The mansion was quiet, but Helena knew better. In Kane Farron's world, silence was never empty. It was waiting, watching, calculating. She moved through the corridors with caution, every sense alert, every shadow a potential threat. The black box pulsed faintly in her grip, a steady heartbeat that matched the rising tension in the air. Kane appeared at the top of the grand staircase, the faint glow of lamplight outlining his sharp silhouette. "They're coming," he said, voice low but urgent. "The rival families won't wait long, and they know exactly who you are. Your past, your magic, they'll try to use it against you." Helena's stomach tightened. She had expected danger, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. I don't understand. Why me?" she whispered, trying to steady her racing heart. Kane's gaze swept over her, assessing, calculating. "Because you're a threat. Because you have power they fear. And because I've chosen to keep you close. That makes you valuable and vulnerable." Helena's pulse surged, both from fear and from the magnetic pull she felt toward him. He was danger and desire all wrapped into one, and every fiber of her being recognized it. "They won't just come for me," she murmured. "They'll come for you too." A faint smirk tugged at the corner of Kane's lips. "Let them try," he said. "But remember this. Cross my family and there's no mercy. Not for them. Not for you if you falter." He moved closer, his presence a dark, compelling force that seemed to wrap around her like a second skin. Helena felt the subtle pull of attraction mingled with fear, an intoxicating combination she had no desire to resist. "We need to prepare," Kane said, his voice firm, commanding. "Tonight you stay close. Learn the rules of this world, or you'll be lost before you even begin to fight." Helena nodded, trembling slightly, but the fire in her chest refused to die. She wouldn't just be a pawn. She had survived stasis, fragments of memory, and the pull of a man who terrified and obsessed her. She would survive this too. Kane's hand brushed against hers, light but deliberate. The spark between them flared instantly, unignorable, dangerous. "Trust me," he whispered, his lips almost brushing her ear, "and I will keep you alive. Betray me, and you'll regret it." Helena shivered, both from fear and desire, realizing that the line between danger and attraction was blurring, and she was willingly stepping closer to the fire. A distant crash echoed from outside the mansion. The first sign that the enemy was approaching. Kane's eyes darkened, dangerous and protective, as he turned to face the threat. Helena's magic pulsed in response, a reminder that her power, though still fragmented, could be an advantage. Or a liability. Kane placed a hand firmly on her shoulder, grounding her, asserting control without words. "Stay close. Watch, learn, and trust me. If you survive this night, we both do. And if not, the shadows will claim us both." Helena swallowed hard, heart pounding. Fear and desire twisted inside her, inseparable. Kane Farron had brought her into his world, into his darkness, and there was no turning back. The night outside thickened, the first attack imminent. And in that darkness, Helena realized the truth. Survival depended on him, on her, and on the dangerous. Magnetic connection that neither could deny. The mansion's walls seemed to close in, thick with whispers of betrayal. Helena moved silently through the dimly lit hall, the black box cradled against her chest like a fragile heartbeat. Each flicker of candlelight revealed shadows that seemed to shift with intent, reminding her that in Kane Farron's world, trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Kane appeared behind her, silent as ever, a shadow among shadows. "You're learning fast," he murmured, voice low, carrying that dangerous edge she both feared and craved. "But knowledge isn't enough. You need to understand the game, the lies, the secrets that everyone around you keeps." Helena swallowed hard, aware of the magnetic pull his presence exerted. She wanted to run, to resist, but every instinct betrayed her. His proximity ignited a tension that was impossible to ignore. A dangerous, thrilling attraction that pulsed beneath the surface of fear. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Why involve me in all of this?" Kane's dark eyes met hers unflinching. "Because you're powerful. Because you survive where others fail. And because you'll uncover truths no one else can." His hand brushed against hers as he moved past her, light and deliberate, sending a shiver down her spine. "But beware. Secrets are weapons, and lies, well, lies can be more lethal than bullets." Helena's fingers clenched around the black box. Every pulse of light reminded her of her fragmented past. of memories half remembered and promises she couldn't trust. The pull toward Kane intensified, an invisible thread tugging at her resolve. She hated the way her heart raced at his proximity. She hated that she wanted to lean into him, to test the boundaries of danger and desire. Kane's gaze darkened. "You're curious," he said softly, almost a whisper, yet carrying the weight of command. "Curiosity is dangerous, especially here. One mistake, one misstep, and it won't just be you who suffers." Helena's breath hitched, the tension between them crackling like a live wire. She knew he was right. The Mafia world was ruthless, full of deceit and hidden agendas, and she had already stepped too far into it. And yet, the attraction, the danger, the thrill of his control, it was impossible to resist. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, heat radiating off him in waves. "Secrets will be revealed, Helena. Lies will surface, and you'll have to choose who to trust, who to obey, and how much of yourself to give." Her pulse raced. The lines between fear, desire, and fascination blurred with every word he spoke. Kane Farron wasn't just a Mafia boss. He was a storm, unpredictable and dangerous, and she was caught in its center. "Then I'll choose," she whispered, defiance threading through the tremor in her voice. "I'll survive. I'll learn, and I won't be just another pawn." Kane's smirk deepened, shadowed and magnetic. "Good," he said, voice low and promising, "because this game, this world, is only beginning, and by the time it's over you'll see that even lies can bind you, just as desire does." Helena's gaze met his, electric, and for the first time she understood the truth. In Kane Farron's shadows, nothing was simple, nothing was safe, and yet everything was dangerously irresistible. The night was thick with heat and tension, the kind that made the air itself feel electric. Helena stood by the window of Kane Farron's private chamber, her fingers brushing the cool glass as she tried to steady her racing heart. Every shadow in the room seemed to move with a purpose, echoing the unrest in her mind and in her chest. Kane entered silently, as if the room had been holding its breath for him. He leaned casually against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes locked on her. There was a dangerous calm in his gaze, a predator's patience laced with something more, something that made Helena shiver and ache all at once. "You're restless," he observed softly, taking a slow step forward. "And I like it when you can't hide what you feel." Helena's jaw tightened. She hated that her pulse jumped at his words, hated that the pull between them was becoming impossible to ignore. "Restless because of you?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Kane's smirk was faint, but it carried a dark promise. "Partly," he admitted, stepping closer. "Partly because I've shown you the edge, and you're dangerously close to falling." Her breath hitched as he circled her, a shadow among shadows, magnetic and inescapable. Every move he made was deliberate, every glance, every inflection, designed to draw her in, to test her limits. The tension coiled in her stomach, the dangerous thrill of his power mingling with something far more personal, desire. "You can't fight it," he murmured, stopping just behind her. She could feel the heat radiating off him, the subtle strength of his body, a silent command she wanted to obey and resist at the same time. "You feel it. The pull, the fire. Don't lie to yourself." Helena's fingers brushed the black box at her chest, trying to ground herself, trying to remember that control was still hers, barely, and yet every instinct screamed that control was irrelevant when Kane Farron was near. Her magic stirred beneath her skin, reacting to his presence like a live wire, a warning, a seduction. "You enjoy the danger," he whispered, leaning close enough that she could feel his breath, subtle and intoxicating. "You enjoy the power, and you enjoy me." Her chest rose and fell, a tremor running through her as she turned slightly to meet his gaze. She began, words failing her under the weight of his eyes. The tension between them, the undeniable attraction that both terrified and thrilled her. Kane's hand brushed hers, not over the box, not yet, but close enough that sparks seemed to ignite in the air between them. "Don't fight it," he said softly, darkly. "Embrace it. Desire is a weapon, and in this world, it can save you or destroy you." Helena's lips parted slightly, her pulse hammering, mind spinning. Every fiber of her being screamed to pull away, and yet every part of her wanted to lean in, to test the edge of the fire Kane had ignited within her. The night deepened, shadows pressing against the walls, and Helena realized something undeniable. She was standing at the precipice. Desire and danger were intertwined, and Kane Farron had brought her here, on the edge of both, where surrender felt inevitable and terrifyingly intoxicating. The storm outside battered the mansion's walls, rain slicing through the night like shards of glass. Helena paced the private chamber, the black box trembling lightly in her hands. Each pulse of light inside it mirrored the rising tension in her chest, the growing storm within. She had been holding back, keeping her magic fractured, cautious. But tonight, that restraint was no longer enough. Kane Farron appeared suddenly, the sound of his boots on the stone floor cutting through the thunder. He leaned casually against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes glinting in the dim candlelight. "You can feel it, can't you?" he asked, voice low, dangerous. "The power, the pull. You've been holding back, but tonight, it's awake." Helena's pulse raced. He was right. Fragments of her memories flickered like lightning, visions of healing light, battlefields, and shadows intertwining with her present. Her magic stirred beneath her skin, restless, impatient, demanding release. "I don't want to lose control," she whispered, almost pleading, though her heart knew that Kane would never allow her to hide her strength. Kane stepped closer, close enough that the heat from his body brushed against hers. "Control is an illusion, Helena. Power, magic, desire, they all demand surrender at some point. Tonight, you'll decide how strong you really are." Her fingers brushed the black box, and the energy inside it surged, bright and unrelenting. Sparks of magic danced along her arms, her palms, and into the air, illuminating the room with an eerie glow. Helena gasped, stepping back slightly, heart hammering, not just from the magic, but from the intensity of Kane's gaze. "Show me," he commanded, voice low, almost a whisper, yet carrying authority that made her tremble. "Show me what you're capable of." Helena closed her eyes, focusing on the shards of memory, the power locked inside her for months. She let it flow, letting the energy swirl around her, bending and twisting at her will. Light surged from the black box, weaving into her magic, shaping the air itself. Kane watched silently, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. "Impressive," he said softly. "But remember, power is only dangerous when you underestimate the consequences." Helena opened her eyes, feeling the surge of magic fade into a simmering current beneath her skin. She looked at Kane, the pull between them undeniable, magnetic, dangerous. Desire mingled with power, and for the first time she realized that the two were inseparable in his world. "You're learning fast," Kane murmured, stepping closer. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, each aware of the storm both outside and within the room. "And every choice you make now will define how far you survive in this world, or how deeply you fall." Helena's pulse quickened. She had tasted the edge of her power, and it had ignited something in her, something that couldn't be restrained. And Kane Farron was both her tether and her temptation, the storm she wanted and feared all at once. The room went silent, save for the faint hum of her magic and the storm beyond the walls. Helena realized, with a shiver that ran deep and dangerous, that tonight marked the beginning of a reckoning, not just with her power, but with the undeniable pull between her and the Mafia boss, who had claimed her attention, and her desire. The mansion had grown silent, but silence was never empty here. Helena moved cautiously along the shadowed corridors, her senses alert. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of candlelight felt amplified, as if the walls themselves were listening. And in this darkness, the whispers began. They weren't voices she could identify, more like shadows of words, fragments of threats, secrets carried on the wind. Helena's fingers tightened around the black box, feeling its pulse echoing her own heartbeat. Magic stirred beneath her skin, subtle and restless, warning her that danger was near. Kane Farron appeared suddenly, as if he had materialized from the shadows themselves. His eyes scanned the corridor with calculated precision before resting on her. "They speak," he murmured, voice low and magnetic, "but words are only as dangerous as the ears that hear them." "In this world, whispers can be deadly and intoxicating." Helena swallowed hard. "Whose voices are they?" she asked, tension threading through her words. Kane's smirk was faint, dark, and teasing. "Allies, enemies, sometimes even the past calling your name. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you listen carefully, but trust sparingly." The pull between them was electric, their proximity charged with unspoken desire. Helena tried to focus on the whispers, on the movement of shadows, but Kane's presence was impossible to ignore. Each step he took brought heat closer, his nearness a constant magnetic threat. "You're restless again," he observed, circling her like a predator and a dance partner all at once. "Curiosity and desire are intertwined, Helena. You can feel it, can't you? The danger and the attraction, both pulling at you." Her pulse quickened, cheeks warming. I can't control it," she admitted, voice barely audible. Fear and longing twisted together, inseparable. Kane leaned closer, so close she could feel the subtle warmth of his breath. "You don't need to," he murmured, dark and deliberate. "Control is an illusion. Here, in this world, survival, power, and desire are what truly matter." Helena's magic reacted to the tension, flickering across her skin in faint arcs of light. illuminating the fine details of his face, the sharp angles, the dangerous smirk, the darkness in his eyes that both frightened and enthralled her. "You're learning," Kane said softly, letting his hand brush hers, light but deliberate, igniting sparks that raced through her. "And every secret you uncover, every lie you hear will test you, and test us." Helena met his gaze, heart hammering, mind spinning. Whispers filled the shadows, but none of them mattered as much as the silent pull between them, the dangerous, magnetic connection that had grown impossible to ignore. The night pressed against them, thick with anticipation, and Helena realized the truth she hadn't yet allowed herself to name. Kane Farron wasn't just her captor, her teacher, or her danger. He was the storm she wanted, the fire she feared, and the desire she could no longer resist. And in the dark corridors of the mansion, among shadows and whispers, Helena knew that the next move could change everything. The night air was thick with tension, carrying whispers of betrayal from the city beyond the mansion's walls. Helena stood by the balcony, her fingers resting lightly on the stone railing, the black box pulsing faintly at her side. Every instinct screamed caution, but Kane Farron's presence behind her made it impossible to heed. "You're thinking about them," Kane said softly, stepping closer, his shadow falling over hers. "The rival families, their alliances, their plots." Helena nodded slowly. "They'll strike soon, and if I'm not careful, we could both pay the price." Kane's dark eyes glimmered in the moonlight. "Careful isn't enough. You need to act. And sometimes, survival demands alliances that are forbidden. Alliances that risk everything." Helena's stomach twisted. Alliances with their enemies? The idea was dangerous, reckless. But Kane's tone left no room for argument. He wasn't suggesting, he was commanding. "They trust me?" she asked cautiously. "If I approach them, will they listen?" Kane smirked faintly, a dangerous curve that made her pulse race. "Trust is irrelevant. Fear, desire, and necessity, those are the currencies here. And right now, you're indispensable." Her fingers brushed the black box unconsciously. Magic hummed beneath her skin, responsive to the tension, to the stakes, and to the silent current of attraction that ran between her and Kane. Every glance, every proximity, every deliberate word he spoke was a spark, igniting desire and testing her resolve. "You understand," he murmured, voice low, "that if you fail, it won't just be you who suffers. And if you succeed, it won't just be victory you gain." Helena's heart thudded painfully. "I understand," she said, though a part of her was screaming against the danger, against the forbidden closeness, against the undeniable pull between them. Kane stepped closer, so close that she could feel the heat of him brushing against her. "Then let's begin," he said softly. His hand brushed hers lightly, a fleeting touch, but enough to make her shiver. "Together, we navigate the shadows. Together we strike. And together we survive." Her pulse raced, every nerve alight. Trusting him was madness, dangerous in ways that terrified her. And yet she couldn't resist. Kane Farron was more than a captor, more than a mentor, more than the Mafia storm around them. He was the force she couldn't deny, the fire she couldn't resist, and the dark anchor that made her want to risk everything. The night deepened around them, the city below alive with plots, whispers, and danger. Helena knew that every decision now would carry consequences, some fatal, some intoxicating. Kane's voice broke through the silence, dark, deliberate, and magnetic. "We're bound by more than necessity now. By desire, by power, by the shadows that surround us. Nothing will be simple, Helena, and nothing will be safe." Helena met his gaze, pulse hammering, mind racing. In that instant, she understood that this forbidden alliance, dangerous, dark, and irresistible, was not just about survival. It was about surrendering to a world of shadows and desire. Together, the mansion's walls had never felt so oppressive. Every corridor, every shadow seemed to hum with silent treachery. Helena's footsteps were careful, measured, but even her caution couldn't drown out the tension in the air. Something had shifted. Something was wrong. Kane Farron appeared from the shadows, his expression unreadable, jaw tight, eyes darker than the night itself. "They've moved," he said quietly, almost too quiet. "Someone from inside has betrayed us." Helena's chest tightened. "Inside?" she asked, voice trembling despite her efforts to remain composed. "Who?" Kane shook his head, his gaze sweeping the dimly lit hall. "I don't know yet, but they've tipped off our rivals. And you're more vulnerable than ever. Every choice, every movement will be scrutinized." Helena's pulse quickened, fear coiling with the familiar surge of desire she felt in his presence. Every brush of his arm, every proximity, every word carried both danger and magnetism. She hated herself for the flutter in her chest, but she couldn't help it. Kane Farron's control was intoxicating, and she was caught in it completely. "We can't trust anyone," he continued, stepping closer. His voice softened, but the intensity never faded. "Not the family, not the allies, not even those who claim loyalty. Only each other." That's how we survive. Helena met his gaze, the darkness in his eyes pulling her in, daring her to surrender to both fear and desire. Then we protect each other, she whispered, her voice barely audible. No matter what. Kane's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. Exactly. And if someone crosses that line, his hand brushed hers, light and deliberate, sparks of tension leaping between them. They'll regret it, deeply. Helena's magic stirred beneath her skin, responding to the charged atmosphere, to the proximity of Kane, to the danger surrounding them. She felt the power humming, restless, waiting for a release she wasn't sure she could control. You're stronger than you think, Kane murmured, stepping even closer. But strength alone won't save you from betrayal. Or from desire. And you've already felt how dangerous that is. Her pulse raced, her stomach twisting at the dual edge of fear and attraction. She couldn't deny the magnetic pull that bound them together, the fire that surged whenever he was near. Even as the threat of betrayal loomed, she knew she would follow him, through shadows, through danger, through desire, because the connection between them was inescapable. A distant crash echoed through the mansion, followed by hurried footsteps and the sharp click of weapons being drawn. Kane's eyes darkened, dangerous and protective. "Stay close," he ordered, voice low, commanding. "No matter what happens, we face this together. Betrayal cuts deep, but desire can make us unstoppable." Helena's chest tightened. The night had shifted, becoming a battleground of secrets, treachery, and unspoken longing. And in that darkness, she understood the truth. To survive Kane Farron's world, she would need more than magic, more than caution. She would need him, and she already wanted him. The night air was thick with smoke and tension, curling through the grand hallways of the mansion. Helena moved cautiously, aware of every shadow, every flicker of light. The betrayal from within had left her on edge, her senses sharpened, her magic restless. The black box pulsed faintly, as if aware of the storm inside her and the one outside. Kane Farron appeared behind her, silent as the shadows he commanded. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured, voice low, dark, magnetic. "The pull, the danger, the obsession. It's more than survival. It's desire, and it's taking hold of you." Helena's pulse raced, chest tight. She wanted to deny it, wanted to remind herself that he was dangerous, that desire in his world could burn you alive. But the truth pressed in, undeniable. Every glance, every brush of his presence, every word he whispered ignited a fire she couldn't control. "You're reckless," she whispered, trying to regain her composure, to place a wall between them. Your influence. It's dangerous." Kane stepped closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating off him. "Dangerous?" he echoed softly, almost amused. "That's the point. Every touch, every glance, every word is designed to awaken something in you, to test your limits, to see how far you'll go, and how much you'll desire." Helena's fingers itched to touch the black box, to draw on her magic and regain control, but it felt different tonight, more volatile, more alive. And Kane's nearness made it almost impossible to focus. Every nerve in her body hummed with tension and longing. "You're obsessed with control," he murmured, circling her slowly, predator and partner entwined in a dance only they could feel. "But obsession is about power, and desire, and you're discovering both tonight." Helena's chest rose and fell rapidly. I don't know if I can handle it," she admitted, the words trembling with the weight of fear and attraction. Kane's lips curved into a faint, dark smile. "Oh, you can handle it," he said, voice low and deliberate, hand brushing hers lightly, igniting sparks of tension that ran straight to her heart. "You just have to decide if you'll embrace it, or run." Her magic flared unexpectedly, a soft burst of light that pulsed from her palms, echoing the fire that surged through her veins. She gasped, stepping back, but the pull toward him was relentless. Desire and danger were entwined, and she was caught between them, unable to separate the two. "You're learning," Kane whispered, leaning close, so near that the warmth of him brushed her cheek. "Every spark, every touch, every risk, it's building something. Between us, dangerous, addictive, unstoppable." Helena's lips parted slightly, heart hammering, mind spinning. The mansion's shadows seemed to lean in, the air charged with electric tension. She knew this was more than attraction, more than desire. This was obsession, and it had claimed them both, binding them in a way neither could deny. Kane's hand lingered near hers, heat searing between them. "Remember," he murmured, voice husky, "flames can burn, but they can also illuminate the path forward. Don't be afraid to let them consume you." Helena swallowed, chest tight, mind ablaze. Desire had become danger, and danger had become inevitable, and in Kane Farron's dark orbit, there was no turning back. The first light of dawn struggled through the mansion's heavy drapes, casting long shadows across the polished floors. Helena stood in the central hall, black box in hand, the faint pulse of its magic echoing her own racing heartbeat. The storm Cain had warned her about had arrived, not just in the rival families, but in the unpredictable currents of their own world, where trust was a weapon and betrayal waited in every corner. Cain Farron emerged from the shadows, his presence magnetic, dangerous, irresistible. He didn't need to speak. The tension in the room, the way the air seemed to bend around him, carried the weight of unspoken threats and unacknowledged desire. "They've made their move," he said, voice low and commanding, eyes locking on hers. "Tonight, it ends, or it begins in a way that none of us will forget." Helena's stomach twisted. She had survived stasis, betrayal, and the tumult of her fragmented memories. But this reckoning, felt different. The danger was immediate, tangible, almost suffocating. Cain stepped closer, brushing against her as he passed. The contact, subtle yet electric, sent shivers through her. "You feel that pull, don't you?" he murmured, dark and deliberate. "The tension, the danger, and the desire. Don't fight it." "Not tonight." Helena's fingers clenched around the black box. Sparks of magic flared briefly, reacting to her emotions, to the proximity of Cain, to the threat that loomed like a predator outside their walls. "I'm ready," she whispered, voice barely audible but trembling with a mixture of fear, determination, and longing. Cain's eyes softened, just slightly, a crack in the darkness he carried. "Good," he said, "because tonight power, loyalty, and desire collide, and only one of us, or both, will emerge unbroken." The distant sounds of movement echoed from outside, footsteps, muffled voices, the clash of weapons. Helena's heart pounded, but in the electric space between them, it was impossible to focus on fear alone. Cain's presence was overwhelming, magnetic, and the pull between them burned hotter than any threat lurking beyond the mansion walls. He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, grounding her, commanding without words. "We face this together," he murmured. "You, me, our secrets, our power, our desire. Nothing else matters. Not the whispers. Not the lies. Not the enemy waiting outside." Helena met his gaze, heart racing, chest tight, magic thrumming beneath her skin. Desire and danger were inseparable, and Cain Farron had brought her to the edge where both converged. "Then let's end it," she whispered, voice steady, despite the storm inside her. Cain's lips curved into a faint, dark smile, the kind that promised fire and oblivion in equal measure. "Yes," he said softly, leaning close, his voice low, husky, and magnetic. "Tonight the reckoning begins, and after, we see what survives. Desire, power, us." Helena's chest tightened as the room seemed to pulse with tension. The night outside was alive with threat, but inside, their connection was fiercer than any enemy. Magic, Mafia, and desire had fused into a dangerous storm, and neither of them could turn away. The mansion trembled under the approaching chaos, and Helena realized, with a thrill that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that the reckoning would change everything. The mansion was alive with tension, every creak of the floorboards and flicker of candlelight magnifying the storm beyond its walls. Helena gripped the black box tightly, feeling its pulse echo her own racing heartbeat. Magic thrummed beneath her skin, unstable and urgent, a reflection of the danger and desire that coiled around her. Cain Farron emerged from the shadows, every movement precise, controlled, yet carrying the weight of a storm. "They're close," he murmured, voice low, magnetic. "The rival families are betrayers. They think they can corner us, but we've never been cornered, Helena. Not you, not me." Helena swallowed hard, aware of the electricity in the air. The pull between them was as intense as the threat outside. She began, but the words caught in her throat. Fear and longing twisted together, inseparable. Cain stepped closer, the heat of his presence pressing against her. "Don't try to hide it," he whispered. "The tension, the fear, the desire, it's all part of the game. Control is an illusion, Helena. Tonight, you'll learn just how fragile it really is." Her fingers brushed the black box as sparks of magic flared, tiny arcs of light tracing her arms. The pulse beneath her skin matched the rhythm of her racing heart, the magnetic pull toward Cain, and the chaos looming outside. "You're learning fast," Cain murmured, circling her slowly. "But power without focus, without discipline, it can destroy you. And you know I won't let anyone, anything, destroy you." Helena's chest tightened, heat flooding her body. She hated that his words stirred a longing she couldn't resist, that danger and desire were entwined so completely. "I won't let them win," she said, voice firm but trembling. Cain's hand brushed hers lightly, deliberate, igniting sparks of tension that ran straight to her core. "Good," he whispered, "because tonight you'll walk the edge, between control and surrender, power and desire, between survival and surrendering to me." Her pulse quickened, body humming with the energy of her magic and the magnetic pull of his presence. Every instinct screamed caution, every nerve screamed attraction. The black box pulsed violently, reacting to both the danger and the tension in the room. "They're coming," Kane said softly, his lips near her ear, warm and dangerous. "And when they arrive, every choice you make, every movement, every spark of magic will determine who survives and how close we get to the edge." Helena swallowed, chest tight, feeling the storm inside her mirror, the chaos outside. Desire and danger intertwined so completely that it was impossible to separate them. Every glance, every touch, every whisper from Kane threatened to shatter her restraint. "I'm ready," she whispered, though the words trembled with anticipation. "For them and for you." Kane's eyes darkened. Dangerous, magnetic, and he smiled faintly. "Good," he said, "because the edge is where we truly live. And tonight, nothing will feel as intense as the fire between us and the storm waiting outside." The mansion trembled under the coming chaos, shadows dancing in the candlelight. Helena realized with an intoxicating thrill that tonight she would walk the fine line between survival and surrender, between control and desire, at the edge of everything she had ever known. The night exploded with chaos. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the mansion as masked figures stormed the halls, weapons drawn, their intentions lethal. Helena's pulse thundered, matching the frantic rhythm of her magic as it surged beneath her skin, responding instinctively to the danger around her. Kane Farron emerged from the shadows like a predator unleashed. Every movement was calculated, lethal, magnetic. His presence radiated power and control, cutting through the chaos with a command that demanded attention. "Stay close," he ordered, voice low, dangerous. "Every step you take could mean the difference between life and death." Helena's fingers tightened around the black box. Sparks of magic danced across her skin, illuminating the tension in the dimly lit corridors. Every instinct screamed at her to strike, to defend, to survive. But even as her power flared, she couldn't ignore the pull of Kane beside her. Desire and danger intertwined so tightly that separating them seemed impossible. A figure lunged from the shadows, and Helena reacted instinctively, magic erupting in a burst of radiant energy that sent the intruder crashing into the wall. She gasped, heart hammering, eyes wide, not just from the thrill of power, but from the proximity of Kane, his presence burning against her like fire. "You're stronger than I imagined," Kane murmured, his voice brushing against her ear as he moved past her, effortlessly disarming another attacker. His hand grazed hers in passing, a spark igniting between them that made her breath catch, and dangerously close to losing control. In all the ways that matter, Helena's chest tightened. Desire and adrenaline collided, mingling in a heady, almost suffocating storm. She couldn't deny the magnetic pull, the tension, the unspoken attraction that had been building for months. Every glance, every brush of skin, every whispered word from Kane fed the fire that flared inside her. "Kane," she whispered, almost pleading, as another wave of attackers advanced. "I can handle this, but you," he silenced her with a look, dark and commanding. "You don't need to handle it alone. That's why I'm here, together. Every step, every strike, every heartbeat, we face it together. Nothing separates us. Not danger, not desire, not shadows." Helena's magic flared again, brighter this time, weaving through the air like strands of light and power. The attackers faltered, fear and awe flickering across their faces. And in that moment, Helena felt a surge of confidence, of strength, knowing Kane was beside her, their fates intertwined in the chaos. He leaned close, voice low, husky, magnetic. "You're mine, Helena, in every shadow, every danger, every stolen moment. And nothing, no threat, no rival, no fear can change that." Her lips parted, chest rising and falling rapidly. Fear, power, desire, they all collided inside her, unrelenting, unstoppable. And as the attackers fell back, beaten and disoriented, Helena realized the truth. She wasn't just fighting for survival tonight. She was fighting for the dangerous magnetic connection she shared with Kane Farron, a connection forged in shadows, desire, and fire. The mansion trembled under the aftermath, the night alive with tension. And in the stillness that followed, Helena and Kane stood together, bound by power, desire, and the unspoken promise that whatever came next, they would face it as one. The mansion had fallen silent, but the air was thick with electricity. Helena leaned against the grand staircase, chest still racing from the recent skirmish. Her magic simmered beneath her skin, a low hum that mirrored the tension coiling between her and Kane Farron. The shadows seemed to bend toward them, intimate and alive, carrying whispers of danger and desire. Kane stepped from the darkness, his presence magnetic, unavoidable. His eyes locked onto hers, dark and consuming, and every instinct screamed at her to resist, even as her body betrayed her. He moved closer, deliberate and slow, as if every step was a test, every breath a challenge. "You're trembling," he murmured, voice low and velvet dark. "From fear, or from desire?" Helena swallowed hard, gripping the black box in her hands. "Both," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. The truth startled her, but the pull of his presence was undeniable. Desire and danger had intertwined so completely that she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Kane's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. "Good," he whispered, closing the distance. His fingers brushed hers lightly, sending sparks of heat and tension racing through her veins. "Because fear and desire, they sharpen you. They make you stronger, and tonight you'll need both." Helena's chest tightened as he stepped even closer. The air between them crackled, charged with magnetic energy. She could feel his heartbeat, steady and commanding, syncing with her own, a rhythm that pulled her closer with every passing second. "You're learning to embrace your power," Kane murmured, his hand brushing her cheek, gentle yet impossible to ignore. "But you also need to embrace this pull between us. Desire is a weapon, Helena, and it can protect you, or destroy you." Her lips parted slightly, breath-catching. She hated the way her body responded, hated the heat that flared in her chest, the tremor in her fingers. Yet she couldn't resist. Every glance, every brush of his presence, every low murmur of his voice made her want to surrender. Kane leaned closer, dark and deliberate. "Let the shadows guide you," he whispered, so close that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "Let the desire consume you. Tonight nothing else matters. Not the danger outside, not the lies, not the enemies lurking in the dark. Only us. Only this." Helena's magic flared unexpectedly, light dancing along her arms, responding to the surge of emotion and attraction. She gasped, her heart hammering, body alive with both fear and longing. Kane's gaze held hers, magnetic and unyielding, pulling her to the edge where surrender was inevitable. "You're mine," he murmured, low and husky, his lips nearly brushing hers. "In every shadow, every breath, every heartbeat. And tonight, I'll show you just how irresistible that can be." Helena's knees trembled, chest tight, and she realized the truth she had been denying. Desire was as dangerous as any weapon Kane wielded, and she was powerless to resist it. The shadows around them weren't just darkness. They were a stage for what was about to ignite between them. Fierce, consuming, and impossible to escape. The mansion trembled under the weight of tension and magic. Helena stood in the center of the grand hall, the black box glowing brighter than ever, pulses of energy racing through her veins. The chaos outside had paused, as if the night itself held its breath, waiting. Kane Farron appeared from the shadows, a dark silhouette etched in power and command. Every step he took radiated danger and magnetic control, and every heartbeat of his presence pressed against her like a tether she couldn't resist. "It's time," he said softly, voice low and commanding. "Time to break the chains that bind you. And us." Helena's chest rose and fell rapidly. She had carried fear, doubt, and hesitation for months, but tonight, it all burned away. Magic surged beneath her skin, responsive to her determination and to Kane's unyielding presence. Desire and danger collided, inseparable, electric. I'm ready," she whispered, voice trembling yet steady. Her fingers grazed the black box, drawing on the power that had been locked within her for so long. Sparks of energy danced around her, illuminating the grand hall, illuminating the tension between them. Kane stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, the faintest touch sending shivers racing through her body. "Good," he murmured, eyes dark, magnetic. "Because breaking free, it's never simple. Chains are forged in fear, in lies, in desire. But you can shatter them all." Helena's magic flared, swirling around her like a living force, bending light and shadow, filling the room with raw energy. She felt her fear dissolve, replaced by clarity, by purpose, and by the undeniable pull of Kane's presence. Every spark, every pulse, every surge of power tied her closer to him, and she realized the truth. She didn't want to be free of him. She wanted to stand with him, amidst danger and desire alike. Kane's voice was low, almost a whisper, but it cut through the chaos. "Together, Helena. No fear, no lies, no limits, only power and desire." Her pulse hammered, and she nodded, letting the magic surge fully, unleashing energy she had kept hidden for months. Light and shadows twisted around them, the room alive with the force of her power and the intensity of their connection. Kane's hand lingered on hers, pulling her closer, and for the first time, the magnetic tension between them snapped into something undeniable. He leaned down, lips brushing her ear. "You're mine, and I am yours. In every shadow, every danger, every stolen heartbeat. Nothing will break us. Not the Mafia, not betrayal, not fear. Only this. Only us." Helena's knees trembled, chest tight, heart ablaze. Desire, power, and danger collided, consuming everything in their orbit. And she smiled, a dangerous, exhilarating smile, because for the first time in months, she felt unstoppable. Together, they faced the night, the enemies, the shadows, and the pulse of desire that bound them. Chains shattered, not just the ones that bound her, but the invisible ones that had tethered them both to fear. And in that moment, Helena and Cain Farren became more than captor and captive. They became force and fire, power and passion, bound irrevocably by darkness and desire. The mansion stood still, shadows retreating, as if acknowledging the bond forged in the heart of chaos. Helena exhaled, magic thrumming, and Cain's gaze held hers, magnetic, dangerous, irresistible. The chains were broken. The storm had begun. The night had become a living thing, pulsing with tension, magic, and the raw heat of unspoken longing. Helena stood at the center of the grand hall, black box glowing like a heartbeat in her hands, the energy within her rippling outward, alive. Every nerve in her body screamed with power, fear, and desire. Cain Farren emerged from the shadows, dark and commanding, his presence magnetic, suffocating, irresistible. The storm of chaos outside the mansion had momentarily paused, as if the world itself recognized the intensity building within these walls. "You've grown stronger," Cain murmured, his voice low, deliberate, a dangerous rumble that sent shivers through her. "Stronger than anyone imagined, stronger than even I expected. And tonight, you're going to embrace it fully." Helena's pulse raced, her body alive with both fear and the undeniable pull toward him. "I'm ready," she whispered, though the words trembled with anticipation. Desire coiled within her, a fire impossible to tame, flaring with each glance, each brush of his presence. Cain stepped closer, every movement controlled, deliberate, a predator circling his prey. Yet there was no malice here, only magnetic tension and unspoken need. His hand brushed hers lightly, sending sparks racing up her arms, igniting a storm inside her chest. "Power," he murmured, voice husky, "is intoxicating. Desire as unstoppable. And tonight you feel both. Let it consume you, Helena. Let it bind you to me. There is no turning back." Her magic surged in response, arcs of light tracing along her arms, illuminating the shadows. Her breath caught, body trembling, mind spinning, as the heat of Cain's proximity intertwined with the thrill of her own unleashed power. She could feel the pull, the magnetic draw of danger and desire, and she no longer wanted to resist. Cain's lips curved into a dark, knowing smile. "Every heartbeat, every spark of magic, every glance between us. It's a weapon, and we wield it together." His fingers brushed her cheek, warm and commanding. "Feel it, the obsession. The fire, the pull. You can't escape it, and you wouldn't want to." Helena gasped, letting the energy surge fully, magic entwining with her desire, flowing through her, radiating outward. Shadows danced, flickering with every heartbeat, alive with the storm that had taken over the mansion. Cain's gaze never wavered, magnetic and unyielding, drawing her closer with each passing second. "You're mine," he whispered, lips barely brushing her ear, "and I am yours." In every heartbeat, every shadow, every breath, desire binds us, unstoppable, consuming, and eternal. Her chest tightened, heart hammering, and she smiled, fierce, exhilarating, unafraid. Power, danger, and desire had merged into a single force, one she shared with Cain Farren completely. Outside, the night raged, but inside, the storm had found its center. Helena and Cain were no longer merely survivor and captor. Mage and Mafia boss, they were fire and shadow, power and passion, bound irreversibly, ready to face anything the world threw at them. The mansion pulsed with magic and tension, and Helena realized, breathless, that desire had been unleashed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night had quieted, but the mansion still hummed with the residual energy of chaos, magic, and desire. Helena stood in the center of the grand hall, the black box dim now, its power contained within her, a silent echo of the storm they had survived. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, pulse racing, heart still aflame from the intensity of the night. Cain Farren appeared from the shadows, as magnetic and commanding as ever. His dark eyes held hers, steady, unyielding, and yet softened with something rare. Trust, admiration, and the unspoken intensity of desire that had bound them together. "You've changed," he murmured, voice low, husky, deliberate, stronger, wilder, unstoppable. And yet somehow, still mine. Helena swallowed hard, every nerve alight, every inch of her aware of him. "We survived," she whispered, voice trembling but firm, "because we trusted each other, because we faced the storm together." Cain stepped closer, the heat of him pressing against her, magnetic, dangerous, intoxicating. "We did," he said, a dark smile tugging at his lips. "And nothing can undo what we've become. Together." Her fingers brushed the black box, feeling its faint pulse, the reminder of the magic that had grown inside her, unshakable, powerful, alive. And she realized then that it wasn't just magic or danger that had bound them. It was something deeper, darker, and far more irresistible. Desire, trust, obsession. Kane's gaze darkened, magnetic and fierce as he stepped closer still, close enough for the heat of him to wrap around her like a second skin. "Look at me," he whispered, "not as a captor, not as a Mafia boss, but as the one who will never let you go. Every heartbeat, every shadow, every breath. I am yours." Helena's chest tightened, and her lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. "And I am yours," she whispered, voice low, trembling, electric. "In every spark, every storm, every shadow. Nothing else matters." Kane's hand brushed hers, lingering, deliberate, magnetic. The energy between them crackled, alive with desire and power, a fusion of darkness and fire. Outside, the city lay quiet for the first time in months, but inside, the mansion pulsed with the heartbeat of two souls irrevocably entwined. He leaned closer, lips barely brushing hers, and Helena's breath caught. The danger, the passion, the power, they were all here, concentrated in this final, silent moment. This is ours," he whispered. "Forever, in shadow and in fire." Her heart raced, chest tight, magic and desire pulsing through her. She held his gaze, memorizing it, committing it to every part of herself. "Forever," she echoed, the word a promise, a surrender, a claim. They stood together, the world outside irrelevant, their enemies vanquished or fading, the storm finally stilled. And in that last electric look, Helena and Kane Farron understood the truth. Love, desire, power, and darkness could coexist, and when they did, they became unstoppable. The mansion fell silent once more, but the energy between them remained. Magnetic, dangerous, eternal. And as Helena and Kane held that final gaze, the night whispered a secret. Theirs was a bond no force in the world could ever break. If Helena and Kane's world of danger, desire, and darkness gripped your heart, imagine what's coming next. Don't miss a single heartbeat of this unstoppable storm. Subscribe now to follow their journey through shadows, obsession, and forbidden love, and witness the fire that binds them forever. Every act, every secret, every pulse of desire is just a click away. Join us, feel the tension, live the passion. Subscribe before the night ends.